Thanks for tuning in to That's What I Call Marketing, the Cannes Sessions. Brought to you by Friedman International, the international campaign experts taking the pain out of your multi-market campaigns. I'm your host, Conor Byrne, and having worked with Friedman International in my previous role as a global marketing leader, I've experienced firsthand their deep level of expertise and attention to detail as the go-to experts for all international campaign needs. Now, let's get right into today's episode of That's What I Call Marketing, the Cannes Sessions. Welcome to That's What I Call Marketing, the Cannes Sessions, brought to you by Friedman International. Of course, this is the podcast where you will hear from the leading lights in the marketing world and listen to their unique insights. Don't forget to rate or review this episode or any episode that you've enjoyed, wherever it is that you are listening or watching. Honestly, it is the one thing that is going to help us reach and build on this amazing community of engaged marketers just like you. So if you take the time out to do that, I am extremely grateful. If you're interested in getting involved with That's What I Call Marketing, go to that'swhatIcallmarketing.com/sponsor and you can find out how we can work together. So it's another two-parter to conclude our Cannes sessions. And first up is James Hurman, founder previously Unavailable and co-founder of Tracksuit, and he is followed by Jimmy Knowles of Canva. Now, James is a return guest to That's What I Call Marketing. James is a return guest to That's What I Call Marketing. I met James to discuss his book, Future Demand, in our first episode, probably a year and a half ago now. It is a great read, and I would highly recommend it. And I wanted to catch up with James to chat about how future demand, that phrasing, has really captured the imagination and is an important way to reframe conversations about marketing and brand building with finance. We chat about James's presentation at Cannes, carried out by Tracksuit and presented alongside TikTok, and James explains the implications of this research and how the study concludes that brand awareness significantly impacts growth, efficiency and conversion rates, which was consistent both across Amazon and TikTok work. That so great to see consistency across that research. We talk about how high brand awareness correlates with better performance marketing results. I've seen this firsthand myself, emphasizing the importance of brand building awareness to sustain profitable business growth. I also asked James his views on Mark Ritzen's views that you would have heard a few weeks ago on smaller brands remaining small. And James counters that with the view that the right strategy can help small brands and they can evolve into large brands, albeit with successive creative efforts required. We touch on the crucial role of educating finance, venture capital communities, the value of brand building, and so much more. It's a wonderful episode, as always, at James Hurman. So enjoy this today.
All right.
Hi, James.
Hi, mate. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Have you had a good week?
Yeah, I've had a good week. I'm exhausted, I won't lie. Like, it's full on, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very full on. It's overwhelming, overstimulating. You're hungover, jet-lagged, sunstroked, and overstimulated for days on end. Yeah. We are a shell of our former selves at this point on Friday in Cannes.
And I'm, old and Irish, so...
Well...
It's even worse.
It's even worse. It's even worse for you. I'm getting by on my New Zealandness.
I was saying earlier in the week, I was chatting to Matt from Tracksuit.
Yes.
And I know you were on stage this week with some new research it was TikTok and
That's
Tracksuit,
right.
wasn't it?
That's right.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. I mean, I'll start by going back a step because I think, over the years of performance marketing really taking off and being, producing seemingly incredible results for all sorts of, mostly smaller or younger companies. I think a lot of us who were in had been brought up more in the brand marketing space, had this feeling that surely bigger brands or healthier brands would see more effective or efficient performance marketing.
Right.
And we had that sort of suspicion, but there wasn't a lot of data out there to really kind of back that up in any sort of deep or very conclusive way. And so we started on this journey at Tracksuit last year, actually, when we did a study with Amazon. And so we used our Tracksuit brand tracking data. So we track now thousands of brands from all over the world. So we picked a set of over 100 US brands, and we combined that with Amazon's data, their data from their retail marketing platform, And so we're looking at effectively performance data and comparing that to brand, in this case, brand awareness.
Okay.
And what we found last year was that if we looked at a really important metric, which we call growth efficiency, and what I mean by growth efficiency is as we increase our spend, do we see commensurate performance, or do we see that performance kind of plateau off? Because lots of brands find when they see great performance marketing results, and then when they up their spend, those, the cost per acquisition increases, all that kind of stuff, right? So we wanted to see, what drove growth efficiency. What we found is that it was brand awareness. So brands that had more awareness in their categories off the Amazon platform, just out in the general public, those brands experienced much higher growth efficiency. So they could continue to increase their spend. For every 10% they increase their spend, they'd get a 13% increase in sales. Whereas the low awareness brands, if they increase their spend 10%, they get a 6% increase in sales.
Okay.
So if you're the latter, the more you spend, the more you end up losing in terms of profitability. And if you're the former, the higher awareness brands, you can continue to grow, scale up profitably. So that was very interesting last year. And then this year we did a very similar study with TikTok. So we worked with their marketing science team. We looked at, again, a ton of different brands and compared the brand awareness with the performance on TikTok. The first thing we found was there is zero correlation between brand awareness and vanity metrics on TikTok. So any old brand can, do a great performance campaign and get heaps of clicks and heaps of likes and all that kind of stuff, right? But if you look at business metrics, so if you look at conversion rate, right, if we're actually looking to sell stuff, what we found was there was a very, very clear correlation between brand awareness and conversion rate. So on TikTok, exactly the same as on Amazon, as brand awareness increased, conversion rates increased. And that was a very linear pattern. And it was also, TikTok found that the quality of the performance marketing creative didn't make any difference, really.
Okay.
So if you're a low awareness brand, it doesn't really matter the quality of your performance marketing creative. You won't be able to reach the conversion rate levels of brands with higher awareness. So what this tells us is that brand awareness is a controlling factor for the performance of performance marketing. Both are important, right?
Yeah.
It's not brand or performance or anything like that. Both are important. But brand is a controlling factor for the performance of performance. So if we want to continue to see the same efficiency we're seeing with our performance marketing as we scale up, we need to scale up our brand awareness as we scale up our performance marketing spend. And then we can use those two things kind of side by side in just the right way to build a sustainable, profitable business.
Yeah, well, I've seen that firsthand myself, where the more aware a brand was that I was working on across a number of markets, we were able to just the reduction of the performance spend across the board in every single market.
That's right.
It happened. The one thing about that though is, if you're a small brand, it's harder to build the brand awareness.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Well, it's not harder. It's just you're starting from a different point, right? And so if you're a small brand and you've got 1% awareness, and your objective might be to get to 3% awareness, right? And that will give you an improvement, a small one. But really, kind of growing from a small brand into a big brand is just taking many, many consecutive small steps in the right direction. Yeah. It's not about saying, how do we get to 80% brand awareness overnight with this campaign? Of course not, because no one can afford to do that. Yeah. But as brands grow, it's just about, as you spend a little bit more, if you do well, you make a bit more revenue, that enables you to spend a bit more again, and on you go.
I was talking to Mark Ritson earlier in the week, and he was kind of saying, well, actually, no, small brands are just going to stay small.
Well, I think every large brand was a small brand once, right? So I don't know if I agree with that entirely. I think what Mark's probably meaning by that is that it is, in all of the data, your advertising effectiveness is largely controlled by brand size. So it is harder for small brands to grow. They have to expend more effort, or they have to be more creative, right, in order to grow. So that's definitely true, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible. It just means that we need to be more creative, and sometimes we need to spend a little bit more as a percentage of revenue when we're small, if we want to grow into very big brands, especially if we want to do that quickly.
Yeah, I think an example for me, and I've talked about a lot of people, I might need to shut up and find a different example, but I think Elf Beauty is a brilliant example of a brand that has used creativity to grow. I mean, their growth numbers are insane.
Yeah, absolutely. There's many examples, right? There's plenty to call on, and many of them that aren't the sort of crazy outliers of the Googles and Amazons and Metas of the world, but are just really good kind of young companies that are doing a great job of marketing. They're balancing their brand building and their performance marketing. They're building future demand, and they're using creativity to do that, and they're putting it all together in the right way, and well done to them.
Yeah, I was down at the RTL Ad Alliance beach this week, and Adam Morgan was there on a panel talking about should you win a line, and he was actually referencing future demand. It's catching on, James. It really is, isn't it?
Well, I think it's just such a simple, it's just a simple idea that in any market you have two types of demand. You've got existing demand, which is the small group of people who are in the market and ready to buy now. And then you've got future demand, which is the much larger group of people who aren't ready to buy now, but will buy from the category at some point in the future. They're going to come into the category over time. And so we have two simple jobs to do as marketers. One, which is to convert the existing demand in the market, and that's where performance marketing is fantastic. And the other job is to build future demand, build the familiarity and the sort of emotional positivity around our brand, so that when those people who are out of market come into market, they gravitate towards us and they pay more for us. And once we understand that pretty simple framework, then we know, well, we need to, if we want to grow our future demand, if we want to grow our business over time, we need to talk to all of those people who aren't in the market just yet using broad media. We need to use creativity because we've got to earn the attention of people who aren't in the category, so don't really care about all the rational stuff, and the product information just yet. So we've got to use creativity to earn our way in. And then we've got to use emotion to make sure that they feel good about us, and that means they're likely to pay more for us. And so that's how we sort of grow a sustainable business over time. So it's a pretty simple concept that seems to land well with marketing folks, but it also importantly lands quite well with finance folks and venture capital folks and those people that see the idea of brand as maybe a little bit fluffy. A little bit immeasurable, these sorts of things. And so it's really just trying to put a framework around brands so that people who aren't like you and I can understand its value.
Yeah. And I think you said before, like, who doesn't want that kind of future customer? Like, a finance person is always going to say
absolutely
yes to that.
Yeah.
Another thing that kind of came up this week, and I don't know if you have a view on it, some people are saying, should we see more finance people and more things about finance at Cant? I know it's Festival of Creativity, but loads of other stuff goes on. Do you think it's a worthwhile thing to have here?
I mean, I'm not going to say no to that, of course, but I do think there's probably better ways and more likely ways to succeed than trying to get finance people to come to Cannes for the week. And I'd love it if they did and they participate in the conversation. Don't get me wrong. I just think that lots of them are in a very different world from us. And they've got their own conferences to go to, and they're a little bit more focused on doing their own job brilliantly. But in saying that, I mean, what I would say is I think the education of the finance community is a really, really important job for the industry to get better at doing. And so that education can happen in those people's offices, in their companies. We need to get, much better at marketing to those people. We need to show them the data and show them these principles that we've learned, because most of the time when I do that, they come around, right? Because it's sensible stuff. It makes sense. It's robust. It's robust research and robust data, and so we need to get better at educating them for sure. And I think we probably need to do that before they'll feel inclined to then come to Cannes and really participate in the conversation. So that's part of the stuff that I do, but we all need to get better at it.
Yeah, and look, I completely agree, and it's understanding the language. People say it all the time: language of the boardroom, language of the CFO, and I think it is important that I was saying to someone before, like, mistake often the marketers do is they come in with the pictures. We don't want to be the colouring department, and then we go in and we go, look, wait, can I show you something?
Yeah, I show you some great pictures.
If it's on a spreadsheet, I may not want to know.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, what we learned, many moons ago when I worked at Calenzo and we went through a sort of fabulous period, we learned that if you can get clients coming into the building asking for, work with the sorts of qualities that wins Lions, that's much, much more effective than just trying to sell them that in the creative presentation. So again, it comes back to education, and one of my sort of, major roles back then was telling our clients about all this research and this evidence and how marketing works. And once you do that, you can get them quite excited about it. So even before they've written their brief at the client side, they're asking the agency, right, how do we do something of gold lion winning quality this time? Can you help us do that? What do we need to change our end? And how do we get there? And please help us get there. And that makes the whole rest of the process just so much easier. So it starts with education.
I've been talking to a few of the Irish agencies here, and a few of them have been talking about just that. Like, we need to have that conversation with clients, because you need that ambition to win a line, but for the commercial reasons. And that's something that's come across massively this week, and I think people miss it, is the commerciality. Like, everyone I'm talking to cares about the commerciality. The agencies, the creatives, the designers, they all do care about it.
Yes. I mean, there was that great BBH mantra, effectiveness is our objective, creativity is our strategy.
Yeah.
And that's definitely, I mean, that's just so sort of tightly bundled up, isn't it? That little saying. So they did very well with that. But it's so true, we need to be focused first and foremost on effectiveness, of course, but creativity is such an excellent and powerful and an effective strategy to get there, that we're crazy not to use it and leave all that money on the table. So I think what we're doing at Lions now with, we've got the celebration of creativity, but we've got the creative impact track. So we're talking about these two things side by side and helping everyone understand how they work together and how they can use creativity to achieve the sorts of results that they're wanting to achieve.
You talked there about education, and I know you have a course with work. I can't remember how many hundreds of people have gone through that at this point.
I don't actually know either. I have counting people now, but it's many hundreds from about 30 different countries around the world. So it's been it's a very global program, and we're on our 11th. I think we've just finished our 11th cohort and about to go into our 12th. So it's been a great sort of 3 years or so.
Brilliant. And somebody actually mentioned to me here this week that they'd done it, and because I said I was meeting you, and they said, "Oh, tell James I did the course," and I said, "Yeah, I'm going to tell him you hated it." No, they loved it, and they were from a creative side, and they actually said that they wanted to. I think it was Lorna from Drogue actually, and she said she wanted to really kind of learn more of the other pieces of the effectiveness, and she felt that was a really great way to do it. So there you go, 5 stars.
That's epic. Yeah, we get a lot of, gratifyingly and sort of somewhat perplexingly to me, we get so much good feedback, and it's not that I don't believe in the value of my course. It's just something, you put these things out into the world, and you hope like anything that they're going to be genuinely useful to people and help them improve in their careers. And it was my first time putting together a course like this, and so I was a bit anxious about what are we going to find when it hits the market and people do it, and are they going to love it? And people love it. They just absolutely love it. We get just non-stop, incredibly positive feedback on the program. So that's great. So we'll keep going. We'll keep teaching.
Yeah, brilliant. So it's great. Obviously, we talked a bit about Tracksuit, and you're one of the co-founders there. I've had Connor on the podcast. I had a brilliant idea with him. Did I tell you about this?
There was something to do with you being called Connor and him being called Connor.
And we should do a podcast called "What Would the Connors Do?" People could give us their problems and challenges in life, and we go with it.
Love it.
He hasn't signed up fully yet, but
he's quite a busy guy.
But look, I met Matt. Like, they're lovely sound guys, really smart guys as well. But it's going great from everyone I'm talking to. It's going really well.
Yeah, it's going amazingly. I mean, it's one of the the real startup success stories out of New Zealand ever, really. So it's been an amazing last about a little over 3 years now of Tracksuit since we started, and really I think I think, to be honest, when you make things much better and also much, much, much cheaper, people seem to quite like that proposition. And so it's been great to kind of open up brand tracking to, a whole world of companies that just can't afford traditional brand tracking. And so that's been the real thing, being able to talk to all of those marketers that really want to build their brands but haven't had a great way of measuring it, and then it's very difficult to sell the value of what they do when they can't measure it and all that kind of jazz. So we've kind of positioned around being champions of brand building and really being there for those brand builders inside those organizations and giving them the tools that they need to quantify the value of what they're doing, and to keep winning increasing budgets to keep doing that really well and keep helping grow the business. So it has been it's been very well received. We're now operational in New Zealand, Australia, the US, Canada, the UK. We've got offices in New York and London and Sydney and Auckland, and so it's exciting to be sort of sitting alongside for the ride on a truly kind of global, very high growth business.
It's amazing, and also like they're so laser focused in what they're doing as well.
Yes.
And it's, I think that's incredible because there's so many things they could do.
That's right.
You could go, well, actually Germany's a big market, let's go into Germany, but actually, the focus on the English speaking markets initially, getting it, I mean, there's such growth still in those markets.
Yes.
And I just love that kind of discipline they have.
Yeah, I mean, the guys do have amazing discipline. They're very focused on creating the very best brand tracking product as opposed to doing all sorts of research things that you might do if you were a traditional research consultancy business. So that's kind of sort of laser product focus has been, enormously responsible for, the growth of the business. And then the market, the markets are... you're right. We're sort of starting. I mean, we'll be completely global at some point.
I'm
but
hoping.
Just sort of starting in those key markets and really making sure that we get the product and the experience right, really, really right. So it really is the best in the world. Before we sort of go much further afield.
I was going back over old episodes of podcasts or something I had to do recently, and you were, I think maybe a year and a half ago we spoke, I could be wrong, but you were probably one of the first people that mentioned AI to me. And it was really funny at the time. You were like, some of the younger people in the office are starting to dabble with AI. I mean, it's phenomenal to think, here we are a year and a half later and it is everywhere, absolutely everywhere. How are you kind of experiencing that this week? Has it been a bit we had AI overload?
I haven't personally had AI overload because I haven't really been drawn to conversations about AI quite so much. I mean, I think what's wonderful about where we are with AI is that we've got a massive canvas to experiment on now with all of these tools, and I don't think, like, people keep, naturally people sort of go around asking, what's your predictions for, No idea, absolutely no idea. I don't think we're in a predictable stage. I think we're in a very kind of exciting experimental stage where in our companies we are exploring how AI can help us do what we do better, and also how can we use AI to augment the customer experience, so that's a better one. And we're just sort of playing around with it at the moment and seeing some real success. But I think there are so many more discoveries to be made before we get anywhere near to sort of settling down into clarity about what it is or exactly how it could help, and then predicting where that might go. So I just think it's super exciting to have this crazy mental new tool that we've got, and just like for the time being, just having fun and doing a lot of experiments and sort of seeing what works and what doesn't, and just being along for the ride, really. So I think it is. I think it's right that it is a bit like the internet, and that it is a very sort of generational piece of technology that is sort of more important than things like the metaverse were last year.
That's right.
I definitely think that's true. But I think also, we're going to... I don't think everything's going to change in quite the same way that sort of people believe it will. I think this is an amazingly powerful tool to make us better at what we do and open up new opportunities to us. But I think at the end of the day, we'll still be humans. We'll still be making great campaigns to grow businesses, and we'll still be trying to enjoy ourselves in very non-digital ways over lunches and dinners. As we always have.
I just on that, you went in and you saw Elon Musk his presentation. What did you make of his presentation, or his fireside chat, I guess?
I thought, firstly, I thought it was just a real it was a real treat and a real buzz to just be in an auditorium with Elon Musk. I mean, that was real buzzy, and so I was taking photos and sending them to my kids, and they were kind of freaking out about how close I was to Elon Musk. I thought the interview was, I thought, he just said a bunch of stuff that Elon says, really. Right. So I don't think there was anything new in there, and I think Mark Reed, who interviewed him, I think really missed a massive trick. The question that's the most obvious one to ask Elon is, you've rejected advertising of the Tesla brand for now, many years, must be like over 2 decades. And this year you've started experimenting with advertising, right? You've started to say, let's start advertising, or at least let's start kind of exploring advertising, why have you made that decision?
Yeah.
Why have you made it now? And what's going on there? I thought the not taking the opportunity to ask that question seemed bananas to me.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, we heard Elon say things that we've just heard him say forever, and what you'd expect him to say. So it was a bit dull, but it was a buzz to it was a buzz to be there.
It was buzzy. He was definitely big celeb name, and I felt, look, I'd never really heard him in that context speaking, and I found it interesting just to even see almost the way he thought.
Yeah.
And then he'd say things and he'd catch himself, like he talked about the 10 or 20% risk of AI.
Yeah.
And then you could see him, like Mark Green's like, well, what do you mean by that? And he goes, yeah, but the 80% glass half full.
Yes. Yeah,
it's like, whoa, hang on a sec. You said 10 or 20% is really risky, and you moved on very quickly.
Yeah. I think, like, I think people do, in a world that's so sort of, PR managed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think this is the kind of, this is what people find interesting and entertaining about people like Elon Musk and about people like Donald Trump, who of course I don't sort of advocate for, but I do think that people who do who are very fond of Donald Trump love the fact that he just talks. And it feels, in a way, honest, right?
Yeah.
That you're going off message and saying what you really think. And some of those things are, if we all just sat here and said what we really think the whole time, we'd probably make some comments that other people don't agree with. But yeah, I think that's the fascination, really. Elon just sat there, and it was just he wasn't prepared.
No.
He didn't have a list of answers that were vetted by his PR company or his internal PR people. He just said what he thought.
Yeah.
And I think that's very endearing, because it
well,
doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of drawn to as well. The press team here were saying they'd hate that job.
Oh,
the press team would be a nightmare. Listen, speaking of, not agreeing with people, people saying things. You were saying on Monday night at the lifelong learning session, you picked up on some things you've been on LinkedIn saying about Scott Galloway's views on advertising and brands.
Yes.
Tell me a bit more. Who hurt you?
I certainly didn't feel hurt. I did feel very bemused. I think I'll start by saying I think Scott Galloway is like an incredibly intelligent, thoughtful person, and I agree with so much of what he says. I think he says a lot of stuff that is very true and is very nurturing, sort of, for the world, really.
Yeah.
So I'm by no means am I not a Scott Galloway fan. I do think, the reason I said bemused, I do think it's weird that someone who's a professor of marketing can seemingly appear to know so little about what's really going on in the marketing world.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Scott had said on John Evans' podcast that if you look at the companies that have generated more than $100 billion in value over the last 10 years, what do they all have in common? They don't advertise.
Yeah.
Now, that is so factually untrue. When we look at companies like Amazon, like Google, like TikTok, all of these companies are massive advertisers.
Yeah.
They've all added over $100 billion value over the last 10 years. They're massive advertisers. 6 of those companies make up 7% of the entire ad spend globally. So that is an enormous... So these companies don't just not advertise. They advertise, and they advertise at way higher levels than just about anyone else. So I think it's really, for me, what I think when you're a scholar and people turn to you for advice in your particular area of scholarship, which in this case is marketing, I think it's dangerous when we've got those people that have such big platforms sort of saying things that are absolutely untrue and incorrect. And I worry that many people would listen to Scott, who is awesomely compelling, and go back to their conventional businesses and apply some of the things he says about marketing and kind of destroy their businesses. Because if you tried to market like with zero advertising and just sort of trying to behave in the way that perhaps Amazon or Google did in their early years, you would tank your business. And so I think that's a worry. And so I guess for me, it's about sort of pushing back on that and saying, hey, with respect, that's wrong. And we need to make sure that we don't do a lot of damage by suggesting that it's not wrong.
And he has such reach, and that's the
massive reach.
Yeah, that's the risk, isn't it? That people take what he
Yes.
says as, well, that's, gospel.
Yes, and I know your buddy. I listened to one of your podcasts, and your buddy Colin was sort of saying, "Well, who's got more in his bank account, James or Scott?" And I'm not gonna reveal that, but you can probably guess.
I knew it was you.
But I don't have as much money as Scott, but I don't have as much money as various sort of drug dealers or con artists or tobacco company executives. I'm not sure who's got the most money is the perfect metric for assessing who is saying the most true thing.
Yeah, the evidence might be the truth. It's and look, I think that's the thing. People need to listen to all the perspectives, read, and that's my thing is like, don't listening to one point of view is really dangerous.
That's right.
Listen, thank you very much for stopping by.
You're so welcome.
Thanks a million.
Mate.
Good
Cool.
to see you. Cheers.
See you, mate.
I really enjoyed spending time with James again. Again, we only met virtually, and he's got that type of personality that it's someone you feel like you've known for an awful long time. James has really great, strong views and backed by a lot of evidence. He's done a ton of research on the role of creativity in marketing. And yes, our brand building efforts need to be measured and justified, but creativity does remain a powerful tool for driving business growth and engaging audiences. And it's great to hear James talk about this. James has definitely really pushed the conversation forward in terms of, creativity, commerciality, and again, that reframing about future demand. If you haven't read it, honestly, it is really worth having a read and getting your head around the concept of future demand and how that is a great way to reframe what you're doing in terms of brand building. Next up, I headed over to Canva to meet with Jimmy Knowles. So Jimmy heads up experiential for Canva. Now, I am a bit of a Canva super fan. I love the product. I'm able to do so much because of it, and I wouldn't be doing a lot of these things if I wasn't using it. I find some of the other tools far too complex for my simple brain. So I was really looking forward to talking to Jimmy and talk about Canva's rocketship and its 10-year overnight success. And I wanted to catch up with Jimmy, particularly to talk about the infamous Canva Create Rap that Jimmy and the team created to launch their enterprise product. Now, for me, it says a lot about the culture of Canva that they chose a rap battle to launch an enterprise product. It got massive pickup. Some people hated it. Some people loved it. Who cares? Lots of people talked about it. And it's something most product launches can't say. They got picked up. So it was great getting insight into how Canva thinks about these things. It's definitely a disruptive product and they think about continuing to disrupt the market. So enjoy this with Jimmy Knowles of Canva.
Jimmy, thanks a million for joining me on That's What I Call Marketing. Great to meet you here and in the Canva space at the Media Link Beach. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's fun. Fun little space.
Canva does stuff well. We'll
Yeah.
get on to
Thank
that.
you,
We'll
thank
get
you,
on
thank
to
you.
that.
Yeah, of course.
I have to dial down my fanboyness of Canva.
No, please don't.
I'll do my best. How long have you been with Canva?
It's going on about 2.5 years. So March 2022, which in Canva years feels like 60 at times. In a good, I mean that in the best possible way, of course. Little under 2.5 years.
It's an amazing product, amazing company certainly from the outside looking in, and like for me, it feels like it's the 10-year overnight success in some ways. It's like the band that all of a sudden has the number one hit, and everyone's like, "Oh, overnight success." No, plugging away for 10 years.
Totally. It's funny. So we just celebrated our 10th birthday last August.
Was it a Canniversary?
It was a Canva-versary.
Canva-versary.
Indeed. It was a Canva-versary, our big 10th birthday. And it's wild to see just how, and in such a short amount of time too, while there was like very consistent, steady growth over these 10 years, it really wasn't until 2018, 2019, and really into 2020 that things just took off massively for Canva in such a fast, massively scaled way. It's been very exciting to be on a small part of this journey and to, to play a role in this tremendous growth. It's very exciting, and exhausting, all at the same time.
Yeah. But that's good. I think that is the thing about growth companies is it is exhausting because there's so much going on, but it's so exciting because you see you see how it goes from stage to stage, and all those milestones that you think will never happen, you know, whether it be revenue or headcount, whatever those things are, and you can celebrate them. And the product itself is an incredible product. It's incredibly easy to use, and I only got kind of introduced to it probably a year and a half, 2 years ago. You know, I was looking for stuff to do with the podcast, and I used the free version, and then I was like, okay, it was product-led growth.
Exactly.
Using the free one, and you know, it was working, and then I kind of was like, actually, I can do more, you know, and it's, I think the ease and the, you know, simplicity and like product-led growth works, right? Get me into the product, and you know, I can use the tool.
Completely. I mean, I think the best way to, and we tell this to all of our partners and, you know, the folks that we work with, the best way to understand Canva is to just get in and start using it, and you unlock infinite capabilities that, like, you know, I always tell people the first time, transparently, I ever used the product was as part of the interview process, the job application process. We have something called a Canva challenge, or a challenge presentation that we do. It's basically a prompt that's given from the team. Not really, it's not like a design assessment. It's not like a how good is, you know, it's around strategy, certainly, but we of course ask it to be done in Canva. And I do not consider myself a designer by any means. I consider myself a creative person, certainly, but not a designer by any stretch of the imagination. And it was one of those things that I sat down to do this challenge presentation. You get in the product. I ended up spending hours. You know, I wanted the job. Spending hours putting together this presentation and designing and using templates and grabbing the elements and adding animations and putting in sparkles over words that I wanted to emphasize, and just like these creative ideas and thoughts and moments throughout the presentation that kind of just come to you as you're working through, because you see something in there, whether it's in a template or an element, and you get inspired by it, and you add it, and you try new things. And it's one of those things that I finished the presentation at the end of the day, and I was like, did I do that? Like,
nailed it.
That's pretty good. Not to toot my own horn, but looked really great, and it's empowering. Like it's that's one of the many things that I love about the product, is that I actually do think it does what we preach. That's the goal. Our goal at the end of the day is to empower everyone to design and to help you to do things that you don't think you're capable of, or have the skills to do. And I love that about it.
And also it, you know, again, I remember, like, I worked in agencies a long time ago, and like the only option for people, the designer was doing Photoshop. And I remember we were doing presentations, client pitches, and one of the designers would be working in Photoshop to do the presentation, and it was painful. And I'm not having a pop at the product, the Photoshop product, but he was the only one that could do it.
Totally.
He was sat there, and that's all he was doing, when actually the time and money that was being spent on him could have been used to do other things, you know, that were more upper stream, kind of would cost more, but actually his time. And I look back at that going, that's nearly 20 years ago. But like, if we had a product like Canva, then, you know, I, as a client service director, could have been doing the presentation, and it would have looked amazing. And this guy who's a trained designer could go off and do things that were kind of more added value for clients.
And that you've kind of hit the nail on the head there a little bit, because a job like that should never just be the responsibility of one person. It's a lot to put on that one role, to be like, you're the only person that can do this, so you've got to kind of figure it out, you know, versus with a tool like Canva, being able to spread that out across. And, you know, we always talk about how, you know, there's a lot of rhetoric and commentary about Canva not being for creatives and designers, because it's kind of like, you know, something for the rest of the folks. But what I think that Canva really does is takes the designers and the people that do this professionally and are trained in it out of the minutia of, like, can you make this font smaller? Can you move this over a little bit to the left? And allows them to do the things that are actually creative. And again, another really great value add about the product that I find a lot of value in, and our team certainly finds a lot of value in
100%.
as well.
I think, again, it kind of democratizes the whole thing, and the more that we can see, the better. Tell me a bit about your role at Canva specifically. We're getting on to the good bit. This has been great, but I mean, I'm really excited to talk about what's coming next. But tell me about your role.
Of course. I'm first in the role at Canva. which is exciting, daunting, quite intimidating, all of the things. But global head of experiential, so I oversee broadly how the brand comes to life across our own events, across event integrations, how we're showing up in support of our strategic partnerships initiatives, how we're creating moments in time and bringing the brand to life for our community, for people who want to be introduced to Canva. And it's really exciting to get to play with a brand like Canva that is so colorful and whimsical and playful and quirky is like, I feel like any experiential marketer's dream.
100%.
And it's truly been a dream job for these, first 2.5 years here.
How do you think about, you talked about it being an international role, and obviously Canva, was born out of Australia, kind of one of maybe, not a few, that's probably wrong, but like a lot of tech companies seem to be US based and then go out into the world. It's kind of Canva's Australia to the world, which I love. I noticed Tim Tams there. I'm going to steal about 25 of them.
Please, they're all yours.
I love them.
Yeah.
But how do you then think about how you kind of internationally show up and kind of the nuances and differences of markets?
Totally. Transparently, it's something that we're still kind of figuring out. Over the past 2.5 years, my first kind of like big project was building and developing our first Canva Create in September 2022, which we held in Sydney, an IRL event primarily for an audience of the 2,500 Canvanauts that we have sitting in Sydney. So it was an IRL experience for them, obviously filmed, and we had the recast and just saw such tremendous success. We turned around and did it 6 months later. And then once we got a taste of what experiential means, what it means for Canva, what it means for our community, what it looks like to bring the brand to life, it was kind of that little light bulb or that sparkle, certainly in Mel's eyes and Zach's eyes, our CMO, and all of us around like, oh, there's something here and people are really responding to it and like this is a lot of fun to do. And we kind of laid out the groundwork for the rest of 2023 then to really start doing a lot of testing and learning in how the brand starts to come to life and what it means to be experiential for Canva. And once we got a flavor for what that feels like in a market that isn't Australia and a market that isn't the US and trying some things in London, we very quickly learned to adapt and take a look at how to make these truly local. How to bring in the local flair, how we're adapting the content that we're using as part of it, whether that's different elements in the library or how we're working with local artists or designers to kind of bring things to life. And the truly local aspect of our business is incredibly important to us. I think it's a massive unlock in terms of growth. When we start thinking about the content that's in the platform, you're seeing things in your own language and you're seeing illustrations and elements that feel, you feel like you can see yourself in them. And that's something that's going to be really important for us in this next phase and next chapter of growth.
Yeah, and I've talked to a lot of people about it this week, and it kind of, what I hear, and again, my own experience, at my time kind of in international roles was, it's all like the strategy is almost the piece that's globalized, and then it's figuring out then what are the nuances that need to be applied.
Totally. You roll out, a playbook, we find what works. For example, things like, the Creative Juices bar was this wild idea that we had in 2023 that just kind of like took off, and we love a good pun at Canva. We love, playing with words. We love being very playful in how we come to life. And the Creative Juices concept kind of just came to life at one of our first activations at Possible, and it's since been rolled out. We created a really great playbook for it and how to do it and how to make it feel really good and how to make it feel very Canva and very on brand. And then each local market that it's then gone to, again, we've adapted the content, we've adapted the process. People can design things that feel truly local to them. So to your point, it's about developing that broader strategy and then those little nuances that make it feel very personal and special and magical for those markets are kind of what takes it over the finish line for us.
Yeah, I've seen all the pitfalls. I've seen all the pitfalls, and I think it is ever evolving, and I think to me it's listening. Is the key. Really 100%. Is listening and knowing what really matters, and I could talk about that all day long.
Totally, and adapting too, right? Like I think adaptability in. I've talked a lot about testing and learning and like what that means, but knowing that like you're going to try something, you're going to see it doesn't resonate with a market and audience, and then iterating on it in future versions, or again, that adaptability is really important.
Yeah. Well, listen, we connected straight after the product launch in LA not that long ago. You've come off that to this pretty much back to back. And I had covered it in my monthly newsletter, and I remember seeing it. I remember saying in the newsletter, I said that you knew the product launch was happening. I was kind of interested because it was on obviously the platform, and I was kind of interested to see what was coming.
Yeah.
And then like my feed just exploded with people going, "Oh my God, look at this product launch, look at this rap battle, look at this."
Yeah.
And what was really interesting about it was there was a group of people that were like, "This is terrible, I'm cancelling my Canva subscription." What are they doing? And I think that was probably a reaction I think people had initially. And so it was very interesting as you kind of look at it. And I then remembered product launches that I had directly been involved with, but had sat through in a previous company. And I think I wrote about it in the newsletter, kind of like an SVP gets up, rehearsed to within inch of their life, kind of stumbles through what they're trying to say, but it's all about us and the product and our features and our benefits, and it's a speech. Like it's mind-numbingly boring, you know. And I experienced one probably a year and a half ago. It was really awful to watch. And so this was a product launch that got across the message in a fun way and got amazing pickup. Now, for anyone who hasn't seen it, can you explain what it was? And then we'll get back to how it came about. But explain what it was.
I will certainly try. So, one of the big jobs we've done for Canva, we spent our first decade figuring out how to empower every individual to design. Our next decade is about empowering every organization. As part of that, one of the really big launches from Canva Create was the launch of Canva for Enterprise, which was a massive deal for us. It's a massive deal for our customers and clients. It's a really exciting launch, but not the sexiest of things to talk about. SOC 2 compliance and single sign-on, nobody's jumping up out of their chair for that. So it was important for us to figure out a way to talk about that still felt very Canva, that, to your point, wasn't us just getting up on stage and reading from a script.
Yeah.
And so what the concept that we ended up coming up with is this rap battle, basically, between Roger Coles, who is the man. He's a Canva community member, one of our Canvassators, and just a brilliant mind, a very talented musician and writer and content creator and all the things. And the idea was to have him, start this rap about Canva and about all the products that we launched, and then to get interrupted by this individual that's playing the CIO, who comes on and she's like, no, this is cute, but it's Canva's still not for us. And he's like, oh yeah, we got this. And that's what it was.
Yeah.
And listen, none of us have a single regret about it. We're all incredibly proud of how it came to life, how it all came out on stage. At the end of the day, I'm very proud that it was and feels very Canva.
Yeah.
And that's who we are, and that's our brand. And we're unapologetically us.
Yeah.
And that's something that I know myself and the rest of the team feel incredibly proud of.
Well, and because and I think Maddie said this as well, or maybe when we were messaging, I was like, what product launch from a tech company gets picked up? Like, they just don't, unless it's Apple releasing iPhone 2072.
Yeah.
It's like, we've got a camera now with, 72 lenses on it.
Completely.
But and I think maybe, it was the CEO or one of the co-founders actually said, since Steve Jobs did the Apple launch, everyone's tried to do the same launch, and we've done something completely different. And so it got picked up. People know now Canva has an enterprise solution.
Totally.
It's amazing.
Listen, all press is good press saying. I don't necessarily believe that all the time, but I think to have so many people talking about it and sharing it, whether they liked it, whether they thought it was cringe, whether they thought it was amazing, it was still being shared.
Yeah.
And, you know, the virality aspect of it is obviously not something that we ever plan for, that anyone can really ever
No, you
plan
can't. Exactly.
for,
Yeah.
but
It's just a bonus.
you'd have to be silly to think that we didn't recognize and were very self-aware to know that this was not going to be something that was for every audience. Certainly that people might find it a little bit cringe, but I think our ultimate hope was that, you know, people would see the kind of like Canva magic in it. And I think taken out of context of the rest of the show, and we can talk about like how it came about and how we developed it, taken out of the context of the rest of the show, sure, can certainly see how it might look and feel a little bit off if that's the only element that you're seeing. But to see the rest of the program and to see our colorful costumes and the sequins and the fact, you know, there was a dry ice machine on stage and we entered a portal, and Mel, Cliff, and Cam at one point turned into little cursors that were traveling around the glowed up Canva. It's like the whole keynote was very theatrical, and Mel, and one of the many things that I love about her, is very theatrical. And I think it's, coming from a musical theater background, you know, I talked about this being like a dream job and getting to like combine all these amazing elements of my past and what I'm doing now. And it's really exciting. And I love leaning into that and being playful and fun with it. So, you know, within the people in the room loved it.
Well, that's what happened. So that's what happened. And people were saying, I was there.
Totally.
I was there and this was brilliant. I was there, this was brilliant.
Totally.
And that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Tell me then, like, okay, so here you are planning this event. You have to obviously go at some point to the likes of Zach and go, I have this idea. Tell me about that moment.
While I wish I could take credit for this one, this is actually the amazing Mel Perkins, who she loves a good jam with AI. She gets on ChatGPT and she just like, you know, starts jamming and putting in fun ideas and going back and forth and seeing what it spits out, which I think is the right and fun way to use AI. You know, and just she came into a meeting one day and she was like, so I had a little play with AI last night, or I sat down with AI last night, which makes my blood run cold because I'm like, what is she going to say now? What's it going to be? And she was like, and I had this idea for a rap battle, and could be a really fun, out of the box, extraordinary way to launch enterprise. And of course, it starts and we all roll our eyes. Okay, sure. And then, you know, she's like, it started and she was like, and I've got a script for it too. So she sent us the script and she put it with visuals and, you know, it stepped it out in a Canva presentation. We were like, okay, we can see it. Then two guys from our creative team, and I wish I'll have to find and send you the recording because it is, they will kill me, but it is
I won't put it public.
hilarious. Like the script that she wrote, they just got in a recording booth and we just like mixed together this like a rough cut version of what the rap could be, and it was so bad, but you could see that like, okay, this has got a heart. It's super fun, maybe a little bit cringy, but like, let's roll with it. And then, you know, we had this idea to bring in Roger, who had performed at us and did a wrap-up rap at our very first Canva Create of just like all of our different launches. And we were like, well, why don't we bring Roger Coles in? And then Roger got his hands on it and just wordsmithed the hell out of it and just ran with it. And the evolution of that first, it's a very clear example of why ChatGPT will never replace humans. Honestly, because that first version was great and it was fun, but like we never would have gotten to where we did had it not been for the brilliance and creativity of Roger, and of course working with our product marketing teams to, you know, understand the nuances of what the product actually does. And then from there we found dancers, we got the track mixed, we produced it, we're in the studio rehearsing for like 3 days only before Canva Create, and brought it all together, and the rest is history, I guess.
You know, and like I've talked again, a lot of people this week for the podcast, and lots of things have come up, but one of the things that has come up is like marketing is an enjoyable job, a fun job. It's not like, you know, we're not the art department, you know, but we need to enjoy it. We need to have passion in what we're doing, and like that came through in this. It's fun. I genuinely think that you guys have raised the bar for what product launches could and should be, because again, if I'm I'm a company and I'm an experiential team, and I'm looking at that going, what do we do? How are we going to push the boundaries? And not everyone, I'm not saying everyone needs to do a rap battle. I did suggest Eurovision, go all in on Eurovision next year.
Wow, be careful what you wish for.
But like double down on it, go all in. But and everyone can't do it. But I think it should make people think, how can we do things differently? Because it's been stale for so long.
Yeah, I think, one of the big, again, I mentioned this big job to be done for Canva now venturing into the kind of B2B space and, focusing on how we're empowering every organization, this kind of shifting in perception of Canva, the tool that you use to create your wedding save the dates and your birthday party invitations or your PSA flyers or whatever it might be, to Canva, the tool that's empowering your workplace to collaborate, to create content at scale. So with that shifting of perception, this new kind of wading into the water of what the world of B2B looks like, it's incredibly important for us to maintain the brand that people have come to love us for, and that sense of whimsy and color, and not make it, just because it's B2B, not make it boring or stale or cater to a suit and tie type audience. Our amazing executive creative director, Kat Vanderwerf, just posted a LinkedIn post about this the other day. We very much think about the B2B, the B2C of it all as this idea of like business to human, because at the end of the day, right, the people that are, they might sit in a workplace and, work on a team and wear a suit and tie perhaps, but when they leave work, they're humans, and they're going to, the shopping mall, and they're commuting on the subway, and they're going out to dinner, and they're experiencing culture, and they're going to music festivals. And I think speaking to those audiences in those more unexpected places in a way that doesn't feel like you're being spoken to like you're at work is what cuts through.
Yeah, 100%. I've talked about it before in this. You obviously listen to the podcast all the time because I talk about it a lot. But mind-numbingly boring, B2B marketing has no place in this world.
Yeah.
Why do we insist on talking to people in a very different tone that you would never stop someone and go, on the street or even in an office and talk to them that way?
Totally.
Like, lose those words. And, as an award-winning B2B marketer myself. I love it. I love the space. I think there's huge potential. So it's great to see Canva pushing the boundaries. And listen, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to me today. We're at time, and I really appreciate it. I was delighted you said yes, that you were here and we could catch up.
Stars aligned.
Stars aligned. And it's again, wonderful product. I said I'd stop fanboying, but wonderful product. The energy that came through in that launch is the energy you get, I think, from using the product, and it's a rocket ship. So
thank you very much, and thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to get to connect. Lovely to get away from the Quisette for a little bit and just kind of chill over here and have a great conversation. So I very much appreciate it.
Thanks a million.
Yeah, of course.
Well, but that is it for the Cannes sessions. Incredible to meet so many amazing people at Cannes. I set out to try and meet as many people as possible. We had all the daily episodes. Again, thanks to Colin Lewis for joining me on so many of those, and everybody that joined in on those episodes. It may seem like a long time ago going back, but if you haven't listened to them, there's some great insights into what happened at Cannes. If you're trying to make the case to go to Cannes next year, hopefully they might help you. All the people that stopped by and took time out of their day at Cannes to do interviews with me, I genuinely really appreciate it. If you've enjoyed any of these episodes, please, it would be amazing if you left a review or a rating for the show and the episodes. Honestly, it really helps us grow. So we're going to be back next week with a new episode featuring Peter Hammer. So stay tuned for that. Every Tuesday, new episodes of That's What I Call Marketing will be released. So do subscribe and you will be updated when they are released. So for me, your host, Conor Byrne, thanks so much for tuning in.